Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. You students of the Civil War are well aware that Major General Joseph Hooker, Fighting Joe, as he was popularly known, had worn out his welcome with President Abraham Lincoln and the administration with a lackluster performance at best as the head of the Army of the Potomac at Chancellorsville in May of 1863. And so, as Robert E. Lee marched his army of Northern Virginia into Pennsylvania with a course set on disruption and a slim chance of turning the tide of war in favor of the Confederacy, Lincoln placed Meade in charge of the main Eastern Army. Meade notably seemed as surprised as anyone with the appointment. He did not seek it and had long ago made his peace with the reality that what he aspired to achieve and what fate had in store for him might not always be in balance. And yet, whatever came his way, whether he wanted it or not, he'd set aside his own ego and ambition and do his part for the betterment and success of the United States Constitution. Is a question of character. I want to share two excerpts from two revealing letters written to his wife, Margaret, just 4 days apart. The first, written on June 25th, 1863, seeks to relieve her of worries that she had of him getting that promotion. The second, just 4 days later, breaks the bad news to her that he's been appointed to Fighting Joe's place. Let's start with the first letter. It's date-lined Camp at Aldie, Virginia, June 25th, 1863. Meade begins, I see you are troubled with visions of my being placed in command. I thought that had all blown over, and I think it has, except in your imagination and that of some others of my kind friends. I have no doubt great efforts have been made to get McClellan back. That, of course, George B. McClellan, the former commander, and advantage has been taken of the excitement produced by the invasion of Maryland to push his claims. But his friends ought to see that his restoration is out of the question, so long as the present administration remains in office, and that until they can remove Stanton and Chase, all hope of restoring McClellan is idle. I have no doubt, as you surmise, his friends will look with no favor on my being placed in command. They could not say I was an unprincipled intriguer who had risen by criticizing and defaming my predecessors and superiors. They could not say I was incompetent because I have not been tried, and so far as I have been tried, I have been singularly successful. They could not say I had never been under fire because it is notorious no general officer, not even Fighting Joe himself, had been in more battles or more exposed than my record evidences. The only thing they can say, and I am willing to admit the justice of the argument, is that it remains to be seen whether I have the capacity to handle successfully a large army. I do not, however, stand any chance because I have no friends, political or others, who press or advance my claims or pretensions. And there are so many others who are pressed by influential politicians that it is folly to think I stand any chance upon mere merit alone. Besides, I have not the vanity to think my capacity so preeminent, and I know there are plenty of others equally competent with myself, though their names may not have been so much mentioned. For these reasons, I have never indulged in any dreams of ambition, contented to await events and to do my duty in the sphere it pleases God to place me in. And I really think it would be as well for you to take the same philosophical view. But do you know? I think your ambition is being roused and that you are beginning to be bitten with the dazzling prospect of having, for a husband, a commanding general of an army. How is this? So that ends an excerpt of the first much longer letter, but that was the part focused on his talking with her, writing to her about the concerns of him being promoted. Second letter is headlined, datelined to Mrs. George G. Meade, headquarters, Army of the Potomac, June 29th, 1863. Margaret must have known immediately by the title, by that dateline, that something had happened. Meade begins the letter. It has pleased Almighty God to place me in the trying position that for some time past we've been talking about. Yesterday morning at 3 a.m., I was aroused from my sleep by an officer from Washington entering my tent and, after waking me up, saying he had come to give me trouble. At first, I thought that it was either to relieve or arrest me, and promptly replied to him that my conscience was clear, void of any offense towards any man. I was prepared for his bad news. He then handed me a communication to read, which I found was an order relieving Hooker from the command and assigning me to it. As, dearest, you know how reluctant we both have been to see me placed in this position, and as it appears to be God's will for some good purpose. At any rate, as a soldier, I had nothing to do but accept and exert my utmost abilities to command success. This, so help me God, I will do, and trusting to him who, in his good pleasure, has thought it proper to place me where I am, I shall pray for strength and power to get through with the task assigned me. I cannot write you all I would like. I am moving at once against Lee, whom I am in hopes Couch, that's Darius Couch, a general, will at least check for a few days. Of course, this is a reference to Couch taking command of the emergency forces that are formed in Pennsylvania. Meade continues, if so, a battle will decide the fate of our country and our cause. Pray earnestly, pray for success of my country, for it is my success besides. Love to all. I will try and write often. So there's Meade finishing a brief letter to Margaret, letting her know the bad news, the good news, the news that he was going to replace General Hooker as commander of the Army of the Potomac. You get a real sense there of the moment that he's in, the challenges that he's facing, the awareness he's putting himself in the hands of God and in the hands of his own feelings, his own beliefs, and trusting that he is the right person for the job in this moment. Definitely revealing his character in both of these letters. So, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.